these incredible strides that our country has to make in restoring safety and justice for all of our people. And again, Alabama, I know, because I get so many letters from the people of Alabama and every other form of communication, including tweets. They're so proud of him, and we're proud of him.
Putin elected you!
The election and this endorsement, and I think if you want to discuss that even one more time, because this is the yes or no? Get him out! This is our last stop, as I said, and I'm really here because I promised you during that wild day that we had in August, a long time ago, seems like a long time ago, and just a lot of things came out of that day. It opened up the eyes of the media, even the media that dislikes us all. It opened up their eyes. And it began, to a certain extent here, it began on June 16th, remember the Escalade, coming down the Escalade with Melania. And I talked about crime, I talked about borders, and I talked about trade. Nothing much changed. We just got more severe, and frankly, things got worse. Things got worse, and it made more and more of an impact. So when I announced, we had a big primary, we had a total of 17 people. And I remember they did a report one time, and it was interesting, but they did a report, and it was about 3 or 4 months into the campaign, and they said, Trump has 4 months of experience doing this, and my opponent said 236 years. And it's going to start first. I will say that. They all have to see, right? Rain is good luck, right? Rain is good. And I never like to see it anyway, so we'll do it. But it was amazing. It was really an amazing thing. So we did that, and we got into the general, and we all know what happened in the primaries. And they say they were the meanest primaries in the history of elections in this country. And they were mean, they were nasty. And I generally got good support, Ben Carson, Chris Christie, and a lot of other people support. Ultimately, most of them came around. A few didn't. A few came around right after the election, but that's not right. But we started off, and it was amazing, because that evening, we were set up incorrectly by the media. They all said that Texas was in play. They said Georgia was in play. They said Utah was in play. And they weren't in play. And I never thought they were in play. He shouts out liars. Only in Alabama. But what happened is we tend to believe the media. You know, we believed Walter Cronkite years ago, right? This is not Walter Cronkite anymore. This is not the great Walter Cronkite. So we tend to believe him, and yet I go out around crowds like this. You had to see the crowd we had in Pennsylvania, the crowd we had in Ohio and Iowa. Always a massive crowd. And even after the election, this is just a thank you from me to you and the folks. But that the manager said was 30,000 people. And I read the Palm Beach Post tomorrow, and the one that just came out, and there was a line in the second paragraph. Now, it was one of the biggest crowds that I've seen. You couldn't even see the end of it. It was a field. It was actually a field. Last night, Orlando. It was incredible. And I read the Palm Beach Post today. It said, Donald Trump spoke before hundreds of people. Very dishonest. Very, very dishonest. Hundreds of people is not 25 or 30,000 people. Do we agree? Texas that filled up the stadium. The line was so long, and those are the people that didn't get it. The line was like 30 blocks long, going all the way back to a highway in Houston. Texas, or how we tied in Texas. Anyway, but they said Texas is to play. That means we're doing better, right? Because we're supposed to win as Republicans. And as soon as the polls open, they go, breaking news. Donald Trump wins the state of Texas. We win Georgia, we won Utah. And did you see my competition in Utah? I mean,
you did it well.
Hey, Canada will be glad to have you,
they had
man.
it even with me, and they had me maybe not winning Utah. And by the way, as soon as the real polls came out, we won it in a massive landslide. And that guy, I don't know what he was trying to prove. All we're going to do is lose the United States Supreme Court, potentially. If he, okay, so let's assume the race was closer, because we won by a lot. It wasn't even close. We really thought we needed Utah. And let's assume we didn't win Utah. So what does he gain? You know what he gains? I won't say the name of a magazine guy who worked so hard. So many of these people misread us for 2 years. They misread us, and they're still misreading us. And I love it. They are still misreading us. So we won them. But then Ohio came in, and we were almost 10 points up in Ohio. We were 10 points, more than 10 points up in Iowa. And Iowa, you never win like that, the Republicans certainly. And so we won them by big numbers. And then we came down to Florida, and Florida was even. Florida was even that whole night, the big, beautiful state. I love Florida. And it was even. And then all of a sudden we had to take the panhandle, right? And you had to see the people that were so devastated. They were the media. So they were saying for months and months that Trump is going to get absolutely killed. I remember 3 weeks before the election, one of them, I won't say the name, he said, how is Trump going to lead the rest of his life? Because this is one of the most devastating defeats. He will suffer. And his whole career, which is good, like your football team, right? Football team, they do well, right? How is he going to do? Talking about this 3.5 weeks before the primary. I wanted to tell my wife, I said, hey, that was pretty bad here. His whole life has been based on winning. And he's going to suffer one of the greatest defeats in the history of politics. Right, Jim? That's what they were saying. We were going to lose the presidency. I was going to take down with me the House. And I was going to take down the Senate. And it was going to go down as the single greatest defeat in the history of politics. And 3 weeks later, we had the single greatest victory in the history of politics. Nationwide, thank you. USA is right. Made in the USA. When you put that sign up, made in the USA. But it was like this, terrible kind of. Now he was saying it with, he was very happy. But we then went back, and I went back to work. I went really down to work. And I didn't do interviews. All I did is stuff like this, the rallies. And I didn't want to do interviews because they cut your sentence off, they cut it in half. You make a beautiful statement, and all of a sudden you say, I didn't say that wrong, but they leave the back part of the sentence off, or they don't talk about the other half of the paragraph. It's not so good, right? And I said, I don't want to know these people. And I said, if you want to quote me from the speeches. Now I get nice quotes. But even there, they'll take, like, if you're doing a line, a funny line. I'll give you an example of what happened today. One of the papers wrote a story. I was talking a lot of fun over the last couple of days. I said, prior to the election, you people were strong and vicious and violent, and you wanted to win. I'm saying it kiddingly, right? And you wanted to win, but you were vicious as I've ever seen. And we all were laughing and having fun, right? And then I said, and after the election, meaning last night or the night before, where I was in different places, like Pennsylvania, Hershey, Pennsylvania is unbelievable. But I said, and now you're mellow, you're low key, you just sit back, you won, you're chilling out. Okay, so I said that, and everybody laughed, and they had fun. So today, a couple of the groups, I won't tell you which station, but it's just ridiculous. I said, see, we were right. Donald Trump is calling his people vicious. He said that these people are so we can't have a little humor, folks, because if we have
let's have some humor.
And you know, when you report it or write it out, it does sound that way. But when you see it, you know exactly what we're talking about. So they're very disappointed.
Why did this guy even come?
We go down, we understand. We feel serious, right? We feel serious. These people get it, obviously, because I think I just understand that we won like 2,700 counties. Where's Kellyanne? Where's